When most Americans see Bersa, they immediately think of the Thunder 380, and for good reason. Last count I heard, there are over 1 million of these in the United States. Very affordable, PPK-esque blowback 380s coming out of Argentina. But some folks who haven't been paying attention or didn't read my SHOT Show coverage didn't know that Bersa USA now exists and has been making guns like this 1911 right here in the US in Georgia. I really enjoyed this one. Now this is a classic 45, very Colt-esque in the color scheme and build, you could say, except unlike those lousy Colts, sorry Colt, no sharp edges. I can run my fingers all around here and not hurt myself because Bersa took a little more time and cared a little more in building their gun. Once you build single stack 1911s, it's only a matter of time before a double stack 1911 is going to come about, and that's what we've got here, the M2XI, a very clever play on Roman numerals and Latin numerals to produce a 2011-like gun. Tabletop review and field strip coming up next on In the Box. We opened up this box, and I was curious how this was going to come out, being that these are US made, very competitively priced, and priced well, above some of the lower end imports, but below some of the higher end stuff, and actually even below some of the US made stuff. Again, going back to that Bersa knowledge, you know, I've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 different Thunder 380 models that I reviewed over the years. Some of them have been great, some of them I had a couple hiccups that just seem to be manufacturing flaws, so I can understand where people have some of their opinions on those. However, this US made 1911 has been spectacular and makes me wish it had been my first 1911 rather than what I ended up with, well, 20 something years ago. So we open up that box. We have a Mission First Tactical 2-pistol case, in front of which we'll find our manual, 1 magazine, registration and lock. Now this has some room for mags, may fit double stack 1911 mags, not entirely sure. I just dump stuff in those anyways. Opening up the main compartment, you can see our padded spot to be able to hold 2 pistols. You can sometimes get 3 in there by using this space in the middle in cases like this. And here is our gun, and now I wholly admit that I've already had this out and been playing with it quite a bit because I was really interested. Now for some notes from the manual. As longtime viewers know, I do this both to show the YouTube overlords that I'm not gunsmithing, not disassembling or assembling a gun. I'm doing simple end user level maintenance and safety checks. The other reason also being that I believe the manual is an indicator of how much a company cares about you, well, cares about us, the consumers. That's right, I bought this. The better written it is, the better understanding you're going to have of the firearm, and probably the better time you're going to have with it by not unintentionally causing some type of issue. Manual is very nicely printed, good, clear, sharp images, and specifically for the M2XI model, notes out of here is that for our ammunition, and I'll read this statement to you, so I think it's very trust-inducing. The M2XI pistols are compatible with all factory ammunition of the correct caliber loaded to U.S. industry standards, including high velocity and hollow point loads, loaded in brass, aluminum, or steel cartridge cases. No ammunition manufactured in accordance with NATO, U.S., SAMI, or CIP standards is known to not function in these pistols. That's a pretty, not bold, but wise statement. It shows that they've tried a bunch of different ammunition and made it work. It's not saying that all ammo is going to work, because of course that would be foolhardy, but saying that they've got a pretty good idea that everything's going to run in here. And there's also a good statement in here about no mechanical safety device should be completely counted on. There it is. Or completely relied upon for safety that will override poor gun handling, in this case dropping. So I believe this is a 70 series. We'll get into that later on. As far as disassembly, since there's more than one way to skin a 1911 and people always argue no matter which way I do it, I try to follow the way the manual says. and it doesn't always stay the same way. Here you can see we're going to be locking the slide to the rear and unlocking that full-length guide rod before moving on from there. Another interesting bit in here was a comment about break-in, saying that these pistols are hand-lapped and hand-fitted, and some break-in period might be required. Now, as you guys know, my range videos go straight out of the box. I don't do any warm-ups or cherry-picked footage while I narrate over to make the gun look good or bad, however I'm feeling that day. No, I just do it real and out of the box. So it'll be interesting to see if we have any issues there. Also of note, the magazines that came with it, the two magazines, are both 18 rounder. These are the GBGuns double stack 1911 magazines, or 2011 if you want to risk angering the staccato gods. And it did say in the manual that you should only use the magazines provided by Bersa. Obviously these are commercially available separately, you can get those, and it should be following the same pattern as the standard 2011 double stack 1911 build. In the range video we'll be testing some other magazines to see how those run and see if there's any that you might want to avoid or pick up for yourself. Now on to our standard tabletop fit, finish, and features. We'll start by, of course, showing clear. That slid nice and easily. Bright green followers of those GBGuns magazines sure makes it easy to make sure there's nothing in the mag. And you can see the chamber there. With the slide upside, or the gun upside down, slide lock to the rear, do we have magazine release or ejection? We have a little bit of ejection. There's a little bit of kick going on there. However, as I've said before, when you have steel and polymer, usually it slides out pretty well. Do want to comment one thing on that fit. If I go slow, you can hear it's a nice tight fit. There is some room for wiggle, unlike say some more premium guns. Does that really matter for a 1911? Some folks will say yes, I say no. I think having a little bit of room there allows some room for debris to work its way out and to keep the gun running. Is it as super slick as you'd think, or as the ball bearing thing? This actually feels slicker than guns I've felt with a tighter fit, so I don't think that matters too much, and I can't make it rattle, which of course is the old lore way of testing. The most important bit is that barrel lockup, which is good and tight. So starting up front, you can see we have a beautiful polished stainless bull barrel. This is described as an ultra match barrel. In fact, the slide and frame and barrel are all 416 stainless, which is pretty nice. You can see our full length guide rod there, and that our slide to frame fitment up front is tight enough to be pushing oil out the front just from running the gun manually in hand. Full length dust cover. This is a 5-inch barrel. Yes, I've been on a bit of a 5-inch kick lately because the recoil impulse is just so nice. It's just nice, easy, comfortable shooting. We've got plenty of rail space here. What you'd attach here, not sure. This is a heavy gun, being that it's all stainless. Maybe it could be for duty purposes. Maybe some of you competition shooters, let us know, do you attach lights to give you that weight edge? I don't know if it's necessary in this, but I don't compete anymore. I don't know what the trends are these days. You'll also notice very faintly etched on there is M2XI. So to the casual onlook or in some sun glint, you're not going to be seeing a whole lot. I know a lot of people complain when there's too much billboarding on the side of a slab side 1911, which of course is a great place to print things. We have some nice texture on the front of the trigger guard for those who like to do that European grip. You can see we also have kind of a double undercut. This grip module is different from a lot of other ones that I've felt, which it feels really good in hand thus far with good traction. Nice fine checkering on the front strap. And one other thing to notice here is the extended slide stop release lever. That's been a big thing for, it was huge on single stack 1911s that a lot of people couldn't reach. In fact, I was trained to insert the magazine with my support hand, roll my hand up, and then hit for a reload. The more modern pistols have taught us to just reach with our thumbs, and then when folks went back to the 1911, suddenly they couldn't reach. So that extended lever there is nice. I checked, and with my thumb resting on the safety is as how I shoot 1911s, I don't have any risk of bumping that lever there. So I think we should be good. We'll find out in the range video. You look at the texture on here. Of course, for close-ups and full specs, as always, check the pinned comment over on my site. Is where I'll have that. You can see we have a rather generous magazine well with plenty of pinky scoop, which is what I call that. I like that as a means of controlling my dot, helping me find the red dot. And for the less coordinated folks, you've got plenty of funneling to help you get a magazine in, and you have the relief cuts there. If you're not familiar with the proper way to strip a Type 3 malfunction, this will help you get in there. The back mainspring housing checkering matches the front. We do have an extended safety. The safety has a bit more resistance to it than others. That makes it safer. That also, of course, means you need to have a more proper grip to deactivate it. Speaking of safeties, our manual safety kind of grinds up and is a heavy click off. I'm okay with that. Is it the finest feeling thing? No. However, this is what I need to know for sure and feel, and it requires a decent amount of force to be turned off. That's a good, safe thing. The grinding it back up into safe, I'm not too worried about as long as it gets there. I did notice in our safety fit, there's a little bit of play on the ambi side. If you're not familiar with 1911s, it's a common thing to look for. It's a very difficult thing to get rid of, to eliminate, just because of the way these sandwich together from either side of the gun. There's usually a little room for play, but it is good and tight and activates smartly from both sides. Looking at our sight picture, we have a squared notch serrated rear and a nice bright orange and tritium front sight. This is, of course, also optics ready. If you look at our slide to frame fit on the back and coming around the right side, everything looks standard. I'm going to need to find a wrench for disassembly, as that is required for the next step, which is field strip. Of course, before field stripping, everybody wants to know about trigger talk, so let's get there. Alright. Mid-weight to light take up to a wall. Good crisp brake. A little more over travel than some other models, but remember, over travel is also what prevents you from jerking the trigger off target. Our reset. About mid-length, but takes you just in front of the wall without much kick. I'd say that is a good trigger. I don't measure weights because I've shot enough to realize that weight doesn't matter. That's a topic for a whole nother video that maybe someday we'll get into. Now let's field strip. Alright, field stripping per the manual. We've got the magazine out, we've got the firearm cleared, and using it 5/30 seconds. Why 5/30 seconds instead of metric? Because remember guys, this Bersa's made in America. We're going to loosen this rod. It's at half to a full turn, but not all the way. Now we're going to go to the part where we line up the cutout on the slide with the hump of our slide lock release lever to get it out. And that's going to require a little push from the other side, I think. Ease our slide forward and off the frame. Look at that beautiful stainless there. And here is where we finish releasing this, keeping in mind that there's spring pressure. That's really threaded in there. I see that as a good thing, because the problem with the two-piece rods that some people have problems with, other people don't, is it could loosen on you. But that's not going to happen. Well, less chance of that happening if you've got lots of threads in there. Now we can pull our spring out, and you can see the other half of the rod set up like a conventional GI system, and the reverse plug. Knock the link down, unlock the barrel, and bring it out the front. And now we can take a look inside of our slide. Beautifully done. M2XI series. And our barrel. There's just a little stuff on there. Nice bushingless system. Next we'll do our chamber fit. Chamber fitment, we're looking to see, well, how clean is the chamber. We're also looking to see how much support there is. And I did notice, you see a little bit of chamfering on the inner edges there to help guide an errant round. Nicely done there. Got a piece of Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense, nickel plated. Corrosion resistance is the main reason I chose this for this, but it also reduces friction. I'm going to drop in, listen for plunk. Sounds good. Gripping that round, twist it side to side, feel if there's anything rough in there. It does not feel rough. And then looking to see how much brass is exposed. Beyond the shoulder, not much at all. I'd say this has more support than other 1911 9mm barrels that I've seen, which is a nice touch. Now, of course, I will reassemble this by reversing the process that I did to disassemble it. And while I do that, I'll tell you about what you can expect to see in the range video. You'll see my absolute first shots through the gun. That's right, no warm-up, no practice, no cherry-picking footage, just reality. And then we'll do full magazine +1, see how these Mech-Gar, I actually haven't used one of the Mech-Gar double-stack 1911 mags before. It's nice that it's marked for 9mm. I wonder if it's any different than your classic 2011 mag. A lot of people forget that the classic 2011 mag was meant for 9 and 38 Super, so they can be a little bit long in the body for 9mm. This is only a 50 grain round, but yeah, it's probably the same length. We'll do full magazine +1, take it over to the What's for Dinner table to see what the gun eats. That is going to be tough. I'm sure there's a trick to this that with practice is really easy. Let's see if we can figure that out together. I'm going to keep that lined up. Can this fit through the imperfectly straight spring at the moment? You know what? I think I'm going to get that in there first. Bring it together. There we go. And start threading it together. Making sure it doesn't bind. The What's for Dinner table will include 10 additional loads to the range load, so we'll have a total of 11 loads running through the gun to see what the gun eats. Then we'll take it over to the spinner for sights and trigger control. I already know and like these sights. Trigger feels pretty good, so that should be fun. Practical accuracy is 5 shots from 7 yards at a 1-inch square. It's also where I gather my thoughts, which the last section are the after shots, my thoughts on the gun after having spent that day with it. As always, for full specs, details, pricing, where to find things, that's over on my website. That didn't seat all the way in. What's going on there? There we go. There we are. Quick function check. Yes, and we're good to go. So that is the Bersa M2XI, American-made double-stack 1911 at a pretty good price. So far seems pretty feature-rich. I really like these nostril cuts on the slide. Seems like that would reduce quite a bit of reciprocating mass from up front, while we've got that full-length steel dust cover, which adds non-reciprocating mass up front. Combine that should make for a flat shooter. Does it in reality? We'll find out on the range. Thanks for watching.
Thank you to our Patreon supporters. GBGuns and I do 2 level. Tomboys SS, Eddie O'Brien, Dave F. Dave Rickes Jr. Donald H. Fast, Eddie, Gary B. George H. Greg K. Joseph T. Marvin T. Bay, Rich Sky King, Level 2 Fame Jenna. Thanks for the tip level. So Adrian H. Brad M. Maiden P. Gary LC Kill B. Gorgie BC 9C86. Have FTJ.